It is 1 o'clock. Good afternoon from the 104.5 The Zone Studios. I'm Jackson Williams. In college football news, Michigan is expected to suspend head coach Sharon Moore for 2 games during the 2025 season in a self-imposed suspension in reaction to the Connor Stallions sign-stealing scandal, according to ESPN's Dan Wetzel. In NFL news, the league announced moments ago that Washington, D.C. will host the 2027 NFL Draft. The draft will be hosted on the National Mall where the Washington Monument stands. In other football news, John Gruden is joining the Nashville Cats as a part owner in what the team is calling consulting and advisory roles in all aspects of the team's football and business operation. This is Gruden's first official involvement in professional football since resigning from the Raiders in 2021. For your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, you need to visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons here on 104.5 The Zone, powered by All Four Seasons Garage Doors. 615-737-1045 is the number. We're going to have Justin Melo of Titan Size to talk about a article that he wrote earlier today where he got to interview head coach Morris of Incarnate Word. Of course, he recruited. I'm laughing because I pulled up the screen.
No.
And you are sitting in a new chair. People can see what kind of chair you're sitting in because it's right behind you.
Oh, yeah.
The other one. But
I can't see.
I am now lording over you in this shot.
You are the king of the hill.
Yeah, king of the hill over here. But it's hilarious just to kind of see.
I look like, I'm short.
Yeah, you look like you're a little child.
I really with a big head. It does look like that. This chair is so much more comfortable for my back because I actually had a huge back issue on Friday and I had 3 ribs out of my upper back that I had to get back in spot, and it's still a little sore. So, there.
Well, speaking of we're going to talk about the install here in just a second. Shout out to Philly Mike, Bam, Scoob. Let's see. I'm not going to be able to remember everybody's name. I think there was a Chris.
When you start naming people, and you say, "You didn't say me."
Well, there's Chris. There was Eric. There was a guy from Yazoo Brewery. Brandon as well. A couple of the fans we got to meet. So it's just really awesome. Some guy. I know there's supposed to be a guy that calls in later today.
Oh.
That says that he has bought a VHS tape of, I think, the 2000 or 1999 season. Do you remember which season it was, Jackson? He told us.
It was the first season of the Titans.
The first season of the Titans. Yeah, so 99. And he's going to see if you can remember what you're caught on Mike saying in this VHS tape.
In 99?
In 99.
Oh, I did a lot of expletives back then. We brought a can of whoop, you know what?
Yeah. Yeah, they may be on that video, actually.
That's what I actually said at the stadium when we came back and we beat Jacksonville.
But it was real interesting. I appreciate everybody that came up and talked to us and everything. It's a unique experience for me. It was my first time at the install, but this is the first time my wife actually got to see me be recognized. So she thinks I'm just making it up when I say, hey, I come home and I say, well, someone's, stopped me. And she's like, oh, you're just making it up. But she got to see it firsthand. She was there. Appreciate all the hospitality. Brian Callahan was there.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of random tidbits, and I call them nuggets and all this kind of stuff. But there's a lot of random tidbits from the show. But just overall, because we were just talking about it with Jackson and Joseph, who were there.
You were there, Jackson?
Yeah. Oh. He ended up going.
What'd you think, Jackson? Were you listening, or were you running around with Robert or something?
A little bit of both.
Yeah, a little bit of both. I will say, we didn't stay up into the green room in the area. Me and Stoney and our wives sat at a booth down on the floor, and Stoney took a lot of notes, so I had a lot of notes right there. But he is just, it's like a pregnancy glow. He is just giddy when he talks about Cam Ward, and this Brian Callahan. I mean, very few times, like, I think it was like Mike Vrabel when he talked about Jack Gibbons. You remember how glowing he was about the first time?
Yeah.
And he called him Dr. Gibby and all this kind of stuff in that press conference. This was that, but like times 100.
Whoa.
He was just, it was a glow. There was a glow about him, like almost like a relief that Cam Ward is his quarterback. and there's times where he's...
I'm sure he felt that.
Yeah, I mean, there's times where he's mentioning stuff and going through the film. Because, Greg Cosell brings his own list of film that he wants broken down. Brian Callahan gave Buck a list of his own film for Cam Ward that he wanted to break down to make sure that we got to these certain plays. But there was moments where he says something, and it's not meant as a slight towards any other particular players on the roster, but you can hear all the mumblings across the crowd. But like the first play that he shows is just like, ooh, from the crowd. And like, I mean, everybody was super excited. It was I think the second play was the Syracuse game. I had a lot to drink, so don't quiz me too much on which play it was. But there was the second play was a Syracuse throw, but it was a throw where it's layered in between two defenders to Xavier Restrepo in the back of the end zone was the play. And everybody's just like oohing and awing and all this stuff. And what's funny is like even our wives were like, whoa, look at that. Like, I mean, they're not big football, fans or anything, but they're like, whoa, they recognize it. And like, Brian Callahan was just ecstatic. Like, it really is like he won the lottery is what it felt like.
Okay.
Yeah,
I got you.
Yeah, what do you got, Jackson?
I know the first play was Florida.
Okay, the first play is Florida.
I want to say the second play was Syracuse.
It was Syracuse.
What was the throw on the first play, Jackson?
It was that play. I just couldn't remember who it was.
Florida was a layered throw. It was like a back post. I think it was
because I watched that game
again.
live. That was the first game of the season.
Yeah. Yeah, it was one of those throws because someone's coming in the back out of the he feels the pressure, and they showed a lot of his stuff from pre-snap too, and they wanted to focus in on what he was able to do pre-snap, and I'm pretty sure it was Xavier Restrepo. It was a little grainy on the screens, and we were a little far back, but I'm pretty sure it was Xavier Restrepo. But it was the back of the end zone pass on the left hash mark, I guess you would say, area of the field. So it was like, I mean, it was borderline erotic, like how everybody was acting around these throws and these highlights. But like I said, Brian Callahan looked ecstatic. He looked jubilant. He was glowing, Blaine. And I think I know we have a lot of rightful doubt about whether or not this staff, whether they're on the hot seat, whether they can develop, whether they can do this. And I'm trying not to get too hype, try not to let the fan side of me overtake all this and try to be a little bit objective. But I do find after knowing more and more about Cam Ward and seeing how Greg Cosell and Brian Callahan broke down what they loved, what they didn't like, I'm like, man, there's really no reason that this marriage shouldn't work other than maybe injury. Like this marriage between head coach and quarterback should work. And if it doesn't, I told this to Mike Herndon, who we'll have later on in the week on the show, if it doesn't work, then we know Brian Callahan's just not a head coach for the NFL. But it should work. It should.
What were the negatives?
The negatives were holding on to the ball too long.
Go there first, especially for a quarterback in college to pro.
A little bit of holding the ball too long here and there, not taking the outs when you need to take the outs. So some of the stuff that we've talked about on tape, they brought up. Some of the stuff that we haven't talked about.
They talk about ball security?
Yes. If I remember correctly, they didn't show a play, but they talked about the ball security. But I don't think they showed a play where he had an actual turnover. I could be mistaken, but they did mention ball security. One of the things that they did talk about was they showed two plays where they put an emphasis on what he was doing pre-snap and how he figured out by reading the defense where he needed to go with the ball. And they were, I believe it was quarters coverage or cover 4 was the call, and he was able to diagnose it and figure out where to go with the ball and go the ball there quick. So they put a real emphasis on that in particular.
Was that did he go to the flats?
No, he
did
went
he go?
across the middle, I think.
Oh, yeah, because it's open.
There was a
it's always the middle.
Yeah, so he went to the middle, if I'm not mistaken, to Jacoby George, I think, was the receiver on that play. But yeah, there's a lot to
So
love.
his pre-snap compared to Will Levis is already past the level of Levis.
I would say there was some hints there. If there, I would say this. I would say that this, if I were to make read between the lines of what was being told to us, yes. Now that would be me reading between the lines.
Already you know where to go with the ball based off your routes and where the weakness of the defense is. You know where you got to go. It's that simple. Every defense has a weakness in pass coverage. There's no way around it. Or if you were doing quarters coverage, double post. Read the safety. He snaps on the first post. You take the second post because the corner's on the outside and leverage.
All of this will be. We can also all fact check to what I just said because,
it was right though, based off of what you said.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure that I'm recalling the exact players and where he went with the ball pretty accurately. Okay. But next week, next Friday, the video will be up. This Friday, the audio will be up. So the audio version of the install will be up this Friday. Next Friday, the video version will be up, so you'll be able to watch that as well. So that will be good wherever you get your 104.5 The Zone podcast, wherever, of course, on the 104.5 The Zone YouTube page as well. But it was really interesting. The only offensive player that they didn't get to was my boy Jackson Slater. I was a little disappointed we didn't get any Sacramento State. Yeah, we got some Khalil Mullins, we got Gunnar Helm, some little nuggets about them too. Chimere DK and Alec Iomanor as well. They basically went heavy offense because there was a limited amount of time they could get to. But there was some other stuff we'll get to from that because I do think my Gunnar Helm tight end one take is going to age pretty well when it comes down to it. When we come back, though, we'll talk to Justin Melo of Titan Sized, the Draft Network, and Broadway Sports. And, of course, you can hear him on the Music City Audible with Justin Graver on the Hot Read, or not the Hot Read Podcast Network, the 440 Sports Podcast Network. And he has an article up with why Titans quarterback Cam Ward will keep improving from the man who helped mold him. Coach Eric Morris details Cam Ward. This is Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons here at 104.5 The Zone. Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons here on 104.5 The Zone, powered by All Four Seasons Garage Doors. 615-737-1045 is the number. And, of course, we have the F&M Bank Chat on Zone TV, Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, Facebook Live. And we're going straight to the phones. We're going to Justin Melo, who's up in America's Hat, up in Canada, and he has an article out over at Titansize.com, why Titans quarterback Cam Ward will keep improving from the man who helped mold him. And it's a great article. Encourage everybody to go read it. There will be some stuff you haven't heard before, because there were some things that caught my eye in here. But something that the fans have heard from your co-host over on Music City Audible, Justin Melo, is that Cam Ward is Patrick Mahomes, essentially, and it got brought up here. Now, he didn't say he is Patrick Mahomes all the time, but what did Coach Eric Morris detail about Cam Ward's game that reminded him of Patrick Mahomes at times?
Yeah, Zach, the first thing was the arm angles. You know, that was something that really impressed Coach Morris, having previously been at Texas Tech, coaching and recruiting Patrick Mahomes. Did the same with Baker Mayfield, by the way. But, getting Cam Ward at first incarnate word and then, of course, follows him over to Washington State. But he kind of talked about the arm angles, what really, really impressed him, and the decision-making. At one point, he said to me, he makes decisions as quick as anyone I've ever seen, and it reminded me of Patrick Mahomes. Those aren't words I ever thought I'd say out loud ever again. So certainly Coach Morris, being honest, didn't think he'd have another one like that under his tutelage, if you will, especially when you're not coming from one of the blue blood programs and don't necessarily always have access to these, high-end quarterback recruits, if you will. Really, it was the arm angles and the decision-making that first, had Coach Eric Morris reminded of Patrick Mahomes.
Justin, I thought a real interesting part of the article, and listen, I'm a little bit of a football nerd, but how COVID affected Cam learning the offense, how it helped him grow as a quarterback, transitioning from a wing T offense to what Incarnate Word was planning to run. Can you detail how COVID and helped him get to where he's at for Incarnate Word that first year?
Well, that was part of the story I really wanted to tell. I think you said it at the top. The Cam Ward story, especially, since being drafted leading up, it's been told, right? In all honesty, it's been told in terrific detail by a lot of terrific people. I wanted to take a bit of a different angle and maybe tell part of the story that wasn't quite as well known or as well documented. So he first gets there. I mean, that's why focusing on the shift from a wing T to an air raid, it's got to be one of the biggest changes you could undergo as a quarterback coming out of high school. You really doesn't get much more stark than that. So it really was an interesting coincidence for him, almost a beautiful coincidence, you'd call it. The world was going through what it was at the time, and that just gave Cam Ward, they didn't play football that fall due to COVID. Or programs like Incarnate Word were not playing. It was not top priority during the pandemic. So he had time to kind of come in there. They were practicing against air. Like, they weren't even allowed to do 7-on-7 at first due to the guidelines. So he really just was focusing on footwork and learning the system. And it says a lot about quarterback development, in my opinion, right? That, rarely do we get a chance to break it down to that level. No, normally you got to be bouncing, multiple things at once that you're trying to learn. So for him to just focus on footwork and to focus on the playbook, not worry about going out there and actually competing, made a huge difference to his developmental curve. They said finally, after a couple months, they started 7-on-7, which really was just him, again, practicing against the shell of a defense. And then 3 months later, they start 11-on-11. They said by that time, that was really the first opportunity we had to really assess where he was at, right, in this offense, in this playbook. By that time, they were totally blown away by the leaps and bounds he had made.
He says in here that Cam is also a kid like Patrick Mahomes who spends a ton of time in the meeting room. He asks great questions. His mom was a coach, so he's been around that his entire life. What were you able to glean about maybe his mom and that influence of a coach's influence in his life early from Coach Morris that you thought was, man, this is so interesting and such a good sign of things to come?
Well, Coach Morris could see the difference in a kid that's been coached his whole life and wants to be coached, I think, more importantly, right? I think Cam would tell you himself, and he has said it throughout a bunch of his appearances, like, his parents are terrific people, but certainly there was structure, right? And there was discipline, and there was all the great things that come with what a great coach does. And he was getting that at home from his own mother, who coached high school basketball. So by the time Cam Ward got to Incarnate Word, he was used to that. And he would ask tough questions in the meeting room. He wanted to be guided. He wanted to be coached. He wanted to understand the why behind everything, because since a young child, he knew and learned through his parents, again, with his mom having that coaching background, that there was a purpose to everything he did, and that the way that he was parented. So by the time he gets to Incarnate Word, and now he's really got his first really, really good football mind, coaching him, again, playing in that wing T offense was such a different recruiting process for him. So he gets to UIW. This is the first time he's had a real good football coach, in my opinion, a high-end football coach in his life, and he wants to ask questions. Here's his opportunity to learn more, to maximize the environment he's in, really for the first time. And Coach Morris noticed that immediately. This kid loves to be coached, and he asks good questions.
We're on the phone with Justin Melo of Titansize.com. And, of course, you can hear him on Music City Audible, part of the 440 Sports Network with Justin Graver. And we're talking about his article, Why the Titans quarterback Cam Ward Will Keep Improving, from the man who helped mold him, an interview of which he talked to Coach Eric Morris. And also, we still got the NFL draft that we need to talk about with you as well.
Mm-hmm. Well, no doubt about it, Justin, man. Thanks for coming on. I guess let's start with the expectation. I think this is two different questions. Expectation for wins for the Titans, and does that, I guess, conflict with a rookie quarterback average starting number of wins typically on average over the last decade or even 2 decades that, NFL quarterbacks win a loss record? And would it behoove the Titans to just win 5 or less games so they get another stack in the draft?
That's a good question, because certainly Brian Callahan is feeling some heat going into this year, right, as the head coach of the Titans. If they win 5 or less games, I'm not convinced that Brian Callahan is back in 2026, right? So that's the big question. How many games do the Titans need to win? For me, I think there's a nice middle ground where you can keep expectations low, fairly low, but also see some improvement, right? If this team wins 6 football games, the sad reality is they will have doubled the amount of wins they had the year prior, right? So if they win 6, 7 games, to me, that is the sign of an improving football team. It indicates that Cam Ward had a pretty good rookie season, right? Because you didn't win 3 or 4 games. If they win 6, 7 games, he certainly led them to a couple of those wins, right? It's not the edge rushing group that's going to lead them to wins. It's not the wide receiver group that's going to lead them to win. So if they can win 6, 7 games, I think that gives Coach Callahan a strong argument. Hey, we're improving here. We doubled our win total from year to year. I've got our rookie quarterback looking pretty good. He had a solid, stellar rookie year, something to build on as a sophomore, and we're trending in the right direction. So I think it'd be a little you'd get away from yourself if you think this team is, hopefully they surprise you. But if you're thinking they're capable of winning, 9, 10 games, I think you're in for it a little bit. But certainly a 6, 7 win team would signal that they are an improving football team, that Brian Callahan has them on the right track. People are forgetting, it's nice to get a high pick. Sure, if they win 4 or 5 games, they're picking in the top 5 again. But what does that do to Cam Ward's development? Chances are you're pairing him with a second head coach in his second season. It's a new system he has to learn, yada, yada. I'm a big fan of continuity, especially for a rookie quarterback. We all remember Marcus Mariota didn't have that here in Tennessee. Whether it was with merit or not, people blamed that for years. Oh, he had a bunch of coordinators. He had a bunch of head coaches. Let's remove that from the equation for Cam Ward. Let's get him through continuity and watch the team get better year by year.
What do you think about the thought process on judging quarterbacks, especially rookie quarterbacks, based off of wins? And the reason why I'm asking that, being a former defensive guy, you got to have a real good defense, too, to help you out, and a run game. And weapons.
Well, you got to have a good football team, right? I think in general, wins is not a quarterback stat, in my opinion. I mean, okay. I look at, for example, Drake May last year. The New England Patriots won, I believe, 4 football games. They had tied for the worst record, or second worst record in the entire league. I thought Drake May looked pretty good when he came into the lineup, right? That was a roster that was really, really lacking around him, and that's why you cannot judge Drake May's rookie season based on what the New England Patriots win-loss record is, or was. And I think there's a lesson to be learned there for the Tennessee Titans. This is a roster that is still very much in flux. By the way, it's going to be in flux next offseason as well, right? They've got a ton of players on expiring contracts. They probably should bring a couple of them back, but an Amani Hooker, a Roger McCree, their top 3 edge rushers are all on expiring deals. And Arden Key, Draymond Jones, and Lorenzo Carter. So this is a team that's still being built, and you saw that in the post-draft presser a couple days later, where Mike Borgonzi and Chad Brinker talked about how they knew that there's a best player available approach because the roster had so many holes. So this is a roster that's in flux. It looks like they've built a good offensive line in front of Cam Ward, which is really important and vital to his development. But certainly, they're lacking talent at edge. I think wide receiver is still a big sore spot unless those rookies just hit gold right away. It's a roster that needs to get better, and that's why you shouldn't judge. Certainly, Cam Ward's win-loss record should not be a reflection of how he played in 2025.
Well, I firmly agree, and I agree with everything you said there. I want to add, the defense as well as a running game always helps a young quarterback. So you talked about pass rush game here. Oluwadejo from UCLA kind of break down Femi a little bit. And was that somewhat of a reach too early for the Titans, or that's exactly where you thought he would go in somewhere in that range at 52?
Well, I'm a big fan of the kid in general. Got to know him really well throughout the pre-draft process. I'll say I understand why some people might consider it a reach, but I think this is how we should define reach. I always thought Femi was going to go in that range based on the potential and the upside. He had like 11 pre-draft visits. Okay, he had as many pre-draft visits as essentially any prospect in this draft. For the most part, you don't go early. You're going to go early when you're making 10 or 11 pre-draft visits. That insinuates there's a lot of, intrigue. Some people might stop short of the word interest, but there's a lot of intrigue in you, right? And it's easy to see why. This guy, it's almost unheard of. He switches positions mid-season, going from off-ball linebacker to edge. And I think there's a higher floor there than people give credit. Yes, it's a lot of raw potential. He's a moldable player. He's long. He's strong. We know how that gets thrown around. But once you turn the tape on, he's a pretty good run defender, right? And I think that gives him a floor. That should help get him on the field earlier than maybe some people anticipate. But when you throw him into the mix, into that Titans edge room, they got a bunch of number 3 and 4 pass rushers, right? Arden Key ideally is a number 3. Draymond Jones, these are guys who are borderline 2s or high-end 3s. So you throw him in that room, there should be an opportunity for him to get on the field pretty early. Play recognition, that's all stuff he's going to have to pick up, quickly coming into the league. And there's a bit of a question there based on his lack of experience at the position. But because I think he's got that off-ball linebacker background, he sheds blocks well, he plays with a lot of power, he impacts the run game. I do think as he's developing more of a pass rush plan and maybe an arsenal, if you will, there is an opportunity for him to get on the field, think a little earlier than Titans fans realize.
Yeah, well, lastly, I guess I want to ask about the safety guy coming off an ACL, injury. But, man, the year before he looked fantastic. I think this guy could be a superstar. What did you think about where he went in the value that the Titans got out of Kevin Winston Jr.?
Yeah, a lot of people were incredibly high on Kevin Winston Jr. Titans confirmed they had him at the top of the second round, before the injury. So to get him at number 82, and by the way, it was a partially torn ACL, so he avoided, full-blown disaster in that knee. He ran at Pro Day, right, and he ran in the 4.5. So he's on a really, really nice track there, road to recovery. So things are looking pretty good for him. You watch him on tape, he's a versatile skill set. He's long, he's big, he's strong. He's got that, that makeup to play near the line of scrimmage. I think that's where they probably use him early. Big nickel, big dime, 3 safety looks. I think eventually the goal is, remember when they had Kevin Byard here in his prime and they had Amani Hooker as a younger guy? They had interchangeable skill sets, right? Like both Amani Hooker and Kevin Byard were great playing near the line of scrimmage. They were good tacklers. They were good in the run game. They could also cover tight ends one-on-one, but they were also so good, right, being those ball hawks on the back end. I think Kevin Winston Jr.'s got that same versatility. If they re-sign Amani Hooker next offseason, and it's early, but I hope they do and should. He's a good football player. I think Kevin Winston Jr. probably replaces Xavier Woods, who they signed in free agency earlier this year. Could be a bit of a Band-Aid and to help reset the culture in the locker room. I think the long-term plan, you've got Amani Hooker, Kevin Winston Jr. They can both do all of those things I just talked about Kevin Byard did. Winston, again, is a great fit to play near the line of scrimmage due to his size and range, but I also think he's very, very good on the back end. He's got certainly the sideline-to-sideline ability to cover things back there. So for me, this is a really versatile, interchangeable type safety. And again, Xavier Woods said it the other day. He put it beautifully. There's no free or strong safety anymore, right? You've just got to do everything back there. So I think they got a real versatile prospect that's going to come in, help them this year as a rotational guy, and projects as almost a guaranteed starter in 2026.
At the Draft Network, Justin Melo.
Justin, when you look at the drafting of Marcus Harris, and then you see all these undrafted free agents that they have brought in that have similar size that you would project probably at a nickel. Maybe they play safety, but probably at nickel. What do you think that says about Roger McCreary's status with the team? I know you mentioned him as an extension candidate, but it sure seems like they're at least planning for life without Roger McCreary next year, maybe because they can't get a deal done and he's maybe going to command too much money, or maybe it's because they don't want him back. For whatever reason, doesn't look like he may be back based on their actions right now.
Yeah, I think it's hard to predict, and I agree with that assessment. Anyone who's saying, he's definitely coming back or he's not, I think Mike Morganzi surprised a couple people this offseason. Maybe it was just me, but, Nick Westbrook-Akine, Ryan Stonehouse, and Nick Folk to a lesser degree. I think a lot of people thought, those guys will definitely be back, and none of them were back, right? So it's hard to – one thing we know about Mike Morganzi that leads me to believe that he likes Roger McCreary is you look at everything he targeted in free agency this year – it was guys that played a lot of snaps. Right? Remember, Roger McCreary as a rookie, led the entire NFL in snaps, and he's pretty much been a 1,000-snap guy. I think this year just fell a little short of that, but he's been about a 1,000-snap guy every year he's been in the league. So he's reliable. He's a little versatile. Remember that first year, he played outside a lot due to the injuries they had. Ideally, he's full-time nickel and plays inside. He's a good football player. If the contract is reasonable, I think they should have him back. I'm not ready to say that they're full. A sixth-round pick I don't think is enough to say they're planning for life after him. But it is interesting that Marcus Harris, the sixth-round corner out of Cal, I do think is a nickel. And maybe that's just a depth thing. They didn't really have another guy on the roster, in my opinion, that could play nickel, right? That's not Darrell Baker Jr.'s game. That's not Jarvis Brownlee Jr.'s game, who's now a full-time boundary starter for them. So maybe Marcus Harris is, we need a guy to back up Roger. If Roger gets hurt, we don't know who we're going to put there. Again, that's not Gabe Judy Lawley. That's not Jarvis Brownlee. It's not Darrell Baker. So I'm hoping it's more so just we need some sort of insurance for him. But certainly any time, you're a guy in a contract year and you're good enough to command a certain number, negotiations aren't always going to be straightforward. They're bringing in, I believe, 6 defensive backs undrafted. It almost makes up half of their UDFA list, which they'll confirm later this week when they have, rookie mini camp. But a lot of those smaller guys, Davion Ross out of Memphis, Clarence Lewis out of Syracuse, a bit safety, nickel, interchangeably. So they're bringing in a ton of DBs, and some of them do project as potential nickels.
When you look at this roster right now, where do you think the biggest concern is? Is it at edge, or is it at wide receiver? And why do you think it's whichever one you may choose?
It is edge for me, certainly. I would, I try to stack it like this. At wide receiver, I think, Calvin Ridley, for example, is a better football player than any of the edges on the roster. And I'd almost go as far as saying Tyler Lockett is pretty close to that as well, right? Even an older Tyler Lockett might be about on the same wavelength as an Arden Key or a Draymond Jones. It's similar to the issue they had last year, but potentially worse, where, certainly I understood the need to shed ties with Harold Landry and the bloated salary. But I think, if he was still in that room, he's probably the best edge they have on the roster going into today. There's a reason he led them in sacks last year. So with Arden Key, again, being like a low-end 2, a rotational 3, Draymond Jones, I would say, is about the same. That's why he's on a 1-year deal after failing to live up to the big deal he signed in Seattle after, being a big-time contributor in Denver. So, and then, again, we'll see what Femi is as a rookie. And then you've got Lorenzo Carter, who had 0 sacks last year for a team that desperately needed sack production. So for me, it's by far and away the edge position. It's the biggest hole they have. these 2026 mocks, they're way too early to be releasing them now. But I would say it's, pretty safe bet that it would probably be an edge or a wide receiver.
What is it? Which undrafted free agent should be on everybody's radar right now that they should be like, hey, this guy may actually make the final 53? So which undrafted free agent is that for you?
Well, everyone's going to pick Xavier Restrepo, understandably so, right? The guy had 1,200 receiving yards with Cam Ward at Miami last year. But there are a couple of interesting ones. The word is that they're bringing in 17 undrafted free agents is what I've been told. Again, they'll finalize that list later this year. But they've got a couple. The rusher out of, Northern Illinois, I believe it is, Devonta O'Malley, had 8 sacks for the program this past year. He tested really well at Pro Day. They're bringing in a corner, I was told, Jalen Kimber out of Penn State, who previously was at Florida and Georgia. Like, this is a guy with a lot of pedigree coming out of college ball. I thought that hurt him. It's the NIL era, but 3 different programs, I think, hurt him from, prevented him from kind of building momentum at any of those programs. But Clarence Lewis out of Syracuse, I mentioned, I think will be a good special teams player and might be able to compete for a back-end role at safety. Isaiah Rakes, I believe, is the guy out of Auburn who can play a little nose tackle. He's a big-bodied guy. Remember, we all thought they were going to draft a D tackle. They don't, but they end up getting about 3 of them, I think it is, an undrafted free agency. So there's a great opportunity for one of those guys to make the final 53. So from what I'm told and what I've gathered, they've got a pretty good haul of UDFAs here. It's going to be 17 of them roughly, barring a failed physical when they announce it later this weekend.
Basically, what is your feelings about Cam Ward year one? Like, what is your prediction? What do you foresee about his career this year?
I think it's exciting. Okay, I think you look at the rookie quarterbacks that had success in last year across the league, right? I think Bo Nix was more successful than anyone thought he was going to be. I mean, Jaden Daniels, no matter what you thought, if you thought the world of Jaden Daniels, he probably still exceeded your expectations, right, with the Washington Commanders in year one. I even look at Michael Penix, who came in a bit later and looked okay, I thought, for the Atlanta Falcons. What all these guys had in common was they were very experienced, right? Cam Ward enters here, 5 years of college ball under his belt. He's like, the leader in touchdown passes, something ridiculous throughout his college football career. I think that experience and the ability to master multiple systems, to take a step up, and Cardinal Ward to Washington State, step up. Washington State to Miami, another step up. To handle all of that as flawlessly as he did, when you pair that with the dynamic skill set on the field, the ability, I think, to read defenses and read coverage at a bit of a higher level than he was initially given credit for, pairing all that with the off-script ability, the offensive line they've put in front of them, I think the Titans are going to have a good run game, again, with Tony Pollard, Tajay Spears, and potentially Khalil Maulings, the 6th-rounder, factoring into that a little bit. I think the sky's the limit for Cam Ward as a rookie. Again, we have seen experience be a big-time factor in immediately translating that success in college to the NFL. 5 years under his belt. I don't think a defensive coordinator is really going to throw a whole lot at him that he hasn't already seen and that he doesn't have an answer for. If this was a guy coming in, you look at the young quarterbacks that have struggled and truly have busted over the last couple of years. You go to a Zach Wilson, a Trey Lance. What those things those guys had in common was a lack of experience, right? They didn't play enough college football. They had under, 20, 23 starts under their belt. With Trey Lance, I think it was under 15 when he got drafted number 3. For Zach Wilson, it was just slightly over 20. With Cam Ward, you look at the number of starts he's bringing to the next level. This is a guy that is ready for what is going to be thrown at him. He's landed in a great place. I talked to Coach Eric Morris about that, the way Brian Callahan's going to build and craft this offense around him. The experience that Brian Callahan has doing that, right, doing it in Cincinnati for Joe Burrow. Sky's the limit for Cam Ward. I think he's going to hit the ground running in Tennessee.
Well, we appreciate it, Justin. Of course, you can follow Justin Melo on Twitter, but you also can go to Titansize.com to read his latest article, Why Titans Quarterback Cam Ward Will Keep Improving, from the man who helped mold him, and his interview with Coach Eric Morris. And, of course, you can hear him on Music City Audible with Justin Graver on the 440 Sports Network. Melo, we appreciate it.
Pleasure as always.
Thanks. When we come back, we'll talk about some of the things that Justin Melo talked about, specifically about that defensive comment that he just made right before we hung up the phone with him. This is Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons here on 104.5 The Zone. Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons here on 104.5 The Zone, powered by All Four Seasons Garage Door. Come join the conversation. 615-737-1045 is the number. And of course, we have the F&M Bank chat on Zone TV, Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, Facebook Live. Blaine, he said something, Justin Melo of Titansize.com and Music See Audible. He has a great article out, but he said there won't be a lot that defenses can throw at Cam Ward that he hasn't seen because of his experience. And that's kind of a generalized statement, obviously. But I do wonder from the defensive perspective, do you think that he has benefited from that experience, that there won't be a lot that he can see, and it's really more about the speed of the game? Because I feel like NFL defenses are going to be able to throw a lot at a rookie quarterback, but we've seen rookie quarterbacks adjust really well to the speed of the game.
Well, I don't know about the speed of the game part. I think that's going to be the adjustment. I think what he's going to be is a quick study based off of all the data that everybody talks about him, and that's how you want to see how quickly he adjusts to the speed of the game, his mistakes. Does he make the same mistakes twice? I think that's more what we'll have to see from him than actually he's seen this thing. Well, they made disguise, and he'd be thinking, there's no way that guy could be a cover two. He's on the line of scrimmage.
There's new ways. I would not maybe say not new ways, but there are different ways to confuse pre-snap a rookie quarterback.
Yeah, so I think he's going to be able to adapt sooner than later, but he's got to go through his lumps. All the great ones did, so we'll see if he's going to be a great one or not. I mean, Peyton Manning, we can go down the list of all the rookie quarterbacks that have to go through their growth through the National Football League. So they're all going to get to grow together. So he's going to make mistakes. I just don't think he's going to make the same mistake twice. I think he's a quick learner. He's a studier of the game, and he'll make sure of that.
Yeah, from everything that we have read, it sounds like a guy that's constantly in the film room.
Yeah, he's a football junkie.
Stuff that he said.
Mm-hmm.
He talked about how he wants his receivers in the film room with them and how he lives and dies by the film room. And I do think that is, I'm not saying that no other quarterback has ever came up with that idea before, but that is a good sign of where he's at in his process heading into a rookie season. Because sometimes you may not get to that point until after your rookie season.
Right, and that's why I think he'll be a quick study. That right there, what you just said. So I think that gives him an advantage at least to, meet the average barometer when you're talking about quarterbacks in a rookie season. So, that's why I was asking about how do you judge quarterbacks? Because everybody judges quarterbacks by wins or losses.
Which is the worst, by the way.
But you also got to have a good defense. You also have good, weapons around you. You got to have protection.
Yeah.
Let's start there. We've seen that over the last couple of years. So there's a lot of factors that go in there. And it's still going to be difficult. I'd love to know, Jackson, while we're sitting here talking on this whole deal, like over the last 20 years, a top 5 quarterback drafted, what's the average win-loss record? I mean, I want to guess it was like 5 wins, but I have no idea.
Well, because you're drafted to, historically, if you're in the top 5, you're drafted to
horrible teams.
You're a top 5 quarterback in the draft going to a bottom 5 NFL team in most cases. Because, even look at where Joe Burrow was in his rookie season. I think they were only, while he played, they were just a 2-win team his rookie season, but he himself played very well.
Well, you could see it. You say, no, this guy's pretty good.
Yeah.
But so if
this
you're
guy's in a bad situation.
Right. So you go, he's only win 2 games. Well, no.
Yeah.
Well, you got to
And we're talking about a guy that we know is one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, right?
My favorite.
Your favorite. But one of the, I would say, top 2, top 3 quarterbacks. And he still has his limits to elevation. We saw Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl have limits to what he can elevate around him. He became a little bit of a mortal because he's been able to do so much. We've seen Tom Brady in big games and moments with his New England Patriots, fail because he didn't have the offensive line. Peyton Manning is another one that I can remember year after year is either his defense or his offensive line. It was one or the other. Like it was like he couldn't get it done in the playoffs because it was his defense. He couldn't get it done in the playoffs because of his offense. Now some of that is not true. Some of that is on the quarterback in these instances, but by and large, there is a limit. There is a limit to what a quarterback can elevate year in, year out on a consistent basis on this team. That's why I think quarterback wins is such a stupid stat to quote. I think it's the worst stat one of the worst stats you can quote besides just on its own passing yards for a quarterback. Like, quarterback wins. It doesn't make sense. This is the ultimate team sport.
I don't think quarterbacks would agree with that.
But maybe not. Maybe not. Maybe they love it.
No, because it's everything's built around in the NFL by the quarterbacks and
Yeah.
their actual matchups, and them getting being the highest paid players in the NFL. So
Yeah.
I think they would probably disagree.
Yeah, they
to a certain
probably
extent.
got the ego to them. Listen, when we come back, Jackson will have the answer to your question when we come back. We'll also talk about what are the mistakes that the Tennessee Titans staff needed to have learned in 2024 to maximize 2025. This is Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons here on 104.5 The Zone.
It is 2:01. Good afternoon from the 104.5 The Zone Studios. I'm Jackson Williams. In college football news, Michigan is expected to suspend head coach Sharon Moore for 2 games during the 2025 season in a self-imposed suspension in reaction to the Connor Stallions sign-stealing scandal, according to ESPN's Dan Wetzel. In NFL news, the league announced just over an hour ago that Washington, D.C. will host the 2027 NFL Draft. The draft will be hosted on the National Mall where the Washington Monument stands. In other football news, John Gruden is joining the Nashville Cats as a part owner in what the team is calling consulting and advisory roles in all aspects of the team's football and business operations. This is Gruden's first official involvement in professional football since resigning from the Raiders in 2021. For your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, you need to visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons here on 104.5 The Zone, powered by All Four Seasons Garage Door. 615-737-1045 is the number. Jackson, you have an answer to the question that Blaine gave you.
Yeah, so it's an average of anywhere from 4 to 6.
What was the question? Do you remember?
The question was the average number of wins for rookie quarterbacks
There you go.
the last 20 years. So the variance is about 4 to 6 wins. That's about the average. So
There
we'll
you
call
go.
it an even 5, right
even
where Blaine was. How many winning seasons do you think rookie quarterbacks as a collective have had since 2005?
How many quarterback seasons are we talking here?
20.
20. I would say 3 out of
2.
20. 2 is just C.J. Stroud and Jaden Daniels.
No, I'm talking about the entire rookie class as a collective having a winning season.
Oh, everybody that was drafted in one class. So only 2 out of the 20 draft classes have the entire rookie. So who was that class?
So it was 2022,
Okay.
which would have been, surprisingly, Kenny Pickett, Malik Willis, that class.
Okay.
And then the 2008 class, the Matt Ryan, Joe Flacco year.
Oh, wow. That's incredible. Incredible. Okay. That's what I was trying to figure out. Okay. So mistakes. Brian Callahan has talked about having folders filled with his mistakes and stuff. So that way he can go back and say, I need to change this or I need to change that. They corrected a few mistakes, if you will, theoretically. They fired their special teams coordinator to hire Bones Fossil. They've gone out and spent money on their offensive line, leaving nothing to, hopefully, to chance. Again, this is all theoretically stuff. They went out and got a better quarterback. They went out and got speed at wide receiver. You know, they weren't able to correct all mistakes. But what I've been most interested in and trying to nail down about this coaching staff, and we got a little bit of a glimpse of it on Friday at the install, and we got even more of a glimpse in Justin Melo's article as well, is how much are they trying to break certain habits of Cam Ward, and how much are they going to build and adjust this offense around Cam Ward? Because you would think that every coaching staff would want to maximize the pieces that they have available to them, but not every coaching staff does it. It's a my way or the highway mentality sometimes with these coaches, because you have to have a certain kind of ego to get into this level. And obviously, if you got to this level of success, your way worked, so why change it? So I thought it was very interesting, and this was kind of expressed to us by Callahan as well. But here's a quote from Eric Morris to Justin Melo, where he says that Cam expressed terrific confidence in Callahan during their pre-draft meetings. He felt like they had a good connection, a real connection. Coach Callahan has a plan for Cam, a really good plan for him. Cam felt like they were on the same page. He didn't feel like the Titans would try to restrict him or his playmaking ability in any way. They've expressed tremendous belief in Cam. Now, how much of that is just coach speak or friend speak because you're out in public talking about another team? But I kind of got that sense from Callahan is that they're not looking to restrict Cam. They're looking to harness Cam. And that feels like a little bit of a difference from how they handled Will Levis and even Mason Rudolph on offense last year.
I mean, it's all in subjective. I mean,
You're
until
right.
you play games. I would say, didn't he have a plan for Will Levis?
Well, that's why I'm saying this feels like a different kind of plan, at least, and where it felt like he was trying to make Will Levis something that he wasn't, and he put a lot on Will Levis's plate, and it doesn't really feel like
But that's Will Levis's fault?
No, we're talking about the mistakes the staff made.
Right.
Yeah,
No, I got it, but I'm getting at like, okay, so he's learning on the way, but Will Levis took all the fall for it.
Yeah,
See,
well,
that's what it gets you
not
back
on
to
this
that.
show, though.
No, I know. I'm just saying.
This show, we've cut it down the middle.
I was just trying to figure what makes you it leads down more questioning for me is then what makes you feel like he's going to, have the right plan for him. And I think that's what you were trying to go into, that they're not trying to mold him into something that he's not. What you do is you try to work with the players, of which I've said the whole entire time, even with Will Levis, is you try to work with his strengths and try to keep him away from some of his weaknesses, because sometimes you're a creature of habit. And as an athlete, it's hard to change those like a drop of a hat. It's like saying right-handed and then say right left-handed. Well, no, if you've been doing something for a long time, it's going to take time to change it as an athlete. You have crutches. Every player does at their position. So what you do is you got to let him see on his own after you've told him a couple times. He's going to have to experience the mistake.
Right.
Until it clicks and say, oh, dang it, I got to, and then you got to then support them along the way. It's a really interesting psychology to coach, and I actually like it. So to me, you can say he has all these pieces and all these things about him that are really good, and you're getting them fresh, and you're getting a guy who doesn't have any warts, at all, So
Or
hopefully
no prior NFL coaching too, right?
That's what I'm talking
sometimes,
about. Warts with coaches that, that's already played in. And Levis didn't play a whole lot. He was only in his second year. So I don't think it was there. I think Levis just had his crutches of what he was, and he wanted to be a home run hitter, and they wanted to kind of contain that and say, hey, you got to take what the defense is giving him. And that just wasn't his whole personality type. I think Cam already off the bat is, hey, I can go long ball, sharp ball, intermediate ball. It doesn't matter to me. I want to win, and I want to do what's best for the team.
Yeah.
So I don't think he has that mental side to him where it can kind of get in his head. But I will be interested to see once he fails a couple times, especially if it's in a game, will he stay as confident as he was as he moved up the ladder through his time in college? It's always a test, and there's going to be an aha moment he's going to have in the National Football League, and you're just going to be like, whoa, dang. And you're going to go watch that film and go, where did that guy come from? And then going to swoop through and make it. So then, was that then make him hesitate the next time?
Right.
See, because then you've been used to, I could let that thing go. Or will he just keep winging it? And I would feel like his personality it won't stunt his growth. He'll just keep winging it, even with more confidence, and dive into it deeper with film. But you just never know until you get hit in the jaw.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's totally different now, man.
I can imagine. So, I thought it was interesting. I was listening to Ramon, Kayla, and Will this morning. They were talking about not the same thing, but something similar, where it was the mistakes that that Will Levis was having on the field weren't necessarily the same mistakes he was having in practice. I mean, not the same types. Obviously, he was throwing interceptions, but he wasn't doing this crazy stuff. And you saw how Brian Callahan was like, I don't understand how this is not translating from practice to the game. Like, what is the disconnect here?
Let's first stop there.
Okay.
First of all, you can't tackle in practice, so there was never a time he had to flip the ball.
Yeah.
Somebody had his other arm or he was falling down, anything like that. And practice is only a certain level. That's why I always laugh because, at some point, it's the game that all that matters. You can get toasted all you want to at practice once you're a proven player.
Yeah.
What are you going to do in the game? And
That's
then
true.
you get, so I think it depends on where you're at in your career.
Yeah.
Young quarterback, so obviously, you're not going to, all the pressure's not there. There is no pressure in practice, so you can't simulate everything that's going to actually happen in a game. I mean, we could practice, in the other, room, but until the mic's on, do you know if we're going to, have chemistry, if we're going to, not fear the mic?
Yeah.
Some people get nervous, some people don't, so I think that's the part that is easy for me to see, but it's the same for an athlete. So that's why you never know. It's a guess.
And
There's
to be
some luck
fair,
to it.
Levis didn't have a lot of college quarterback experience to begin with. We're just talking about 2 seasons.
Yeah.
I mean, to be honest with you, and because
he did the same thing he did in college, right?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much. I mean, he was what his tape was. I mean, that tape
was
is
pretty
tape,
clear.
right? That's how I approach it.
And that's why I always felt like whether Levis is going to make it in this league or not, I felt like they still weren't, I guess, leaning to who he was.
I
thought
agree.
Vrabel's staff did more. They did everything they could to make sure that he could elevate and still look like a halfway decent quarterback.
I think the biggest difference is that they were able to take the ball out of Will Levis's hands. The Vrabel staff was.
Right.
Because they had Derrick Henry behind them. It didn't lead to any wins, but they had Derrick Henry.
Yeah. Well, that helps.
Not to down Tony Pollard or anything, but I think this staff didn't want to take the ball out of Will Levis's hands. And again,
with the offensive line,
that could be But I mean, like, you got a bad offensive line. You can't run play action. You may need to lean into your run game because there are times where they went away from the run game.
Yeah.
So I wonder if they learned from that mistake, particularly in the terms of play sequencing, not necessarily the play calling. I guess.
To your point, they were somewhat handicapped, not by just Will Levis, more so than the offensive line.
Yeah.
In their protection. So then they could only call so many things, and maybe that didn't favor Will Levis. I mean, and then all of a sudden now you got 2 issues.
Yeah.
So now you're saying, what can we call?
There is one question, or there's a story that was brought up on Ramon, Kayla, and Will that I want to get to, and I want to see if there was something that applies to you in that scenario as well. This is Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons here on 104.5 The Zone.
For many of you who have lived here a long time, you already know Eurofix has been in Middle Tennessee area for your European car repair needs now for 26 years. We've all gotten to watch them grow. And I don't know about you, but I love watching a hometown business take off. Well, we're now proud to announce the 5th location in Mount Juliet for Eurofix on Mount Juliet Road, right across the street from Dairy Queen. And Eurofix can serve you in Franklin, Hundred Oaks, Murfreesboro, Belmead, and now Mount Juliet. So pretty cool getting to watch a small town mechanic starting in the barn of his backyard of a single wide trailer and now grow to 5 locations repairing thousands of cars each month. And at Eurofix, you get a 3-year nationwide warranty and a free loaner car with every repair appointment. And all you have to do is just give them a call at 844-EUROFIX. That's right, 844-EUROFIX, or you can visit them online at myeurofix.com. That's myeurofix.com. But always don't blaze at you.
Two Rivers Ford announces employee pricing for everyone. Every tradesman, every dad, every rising star. You pay what we pay. Two Rivers Ford. Locally owned. American made.
No, don't worry. We didn't travel back in time. This is the same song you heard earlier. Jackson just had a producer snafu back there. You're kind of proving Buck right with his drive-by shot at you on his show earlier today.
You want to do a
What was
redo?
that?
He called Jack. They were talking about nicknames and stuff, and they were talking about how Ron Slay is really good at giving out nicknames, and he calls Jackson because Jackson's smile has this goofy. This is Buck's words. It has a goofy smile on his face all the time, and I don't know what he's smiling about because he's really bad at his job. But Ron Slay calls him Smiley. So just you're just proving Buck right. Nobody likes that.
Defend yourself, Jackson.
I know I'm good at my job. I don't need to defend myself.
That was a Cam Ward answer.
He's learned a lot from Cam Ward. He's been listening to those press conferences on repeat while he sleeps.
Man. You did a great job.
So I was talking about Ramon Caleb Will. They were talking about the mistakes at practice showed up on film, and sometimes you just revert, kind of like you say, sometimes you just revert to bad habits.
Yes.
And Ramon recalled a time where he did something in a game, and his coach was just going crazy on him, saying that we've never coached you to do that. You've never done that. Where'd that come from? Has that ever happened to you? What was the worst, I guess in another way to put it, what was the biggest bad habit that maybe you had that you had to break at the NFL level?
Oh, there were none. I was a perfect player.
There you go. Listen, everybody's perfect on this show. I'm a perfect host. We got a perfect producer. We got perfect co-host and player.
Yeah, that was all jokes. I really didn't have any crutches, but one thing that, when I got into the league, I was just a real good football player. I was a studier, just, like Cam Ward, but not, but more, defensive guy naturally. So I had to become more of a technician. I wasn't a technician. Technicians means when you're playing your technique at defensive back, whether you're outside leverage, inside leverage. I was like, look, I got my guy, but hey, we want him to, if he completes it, you're supposed to be outside. He can't complete any outside routes. That's why we got you on the outside leverage on this call. If you're on the inside leverage, but where I was just kind of playing him heads up. And so becoming a technician really helped me. And then that forced me then to understand the whole scheme of the defense, like where I had my help at and why I would take risks at certain points in time. So it evolved into something even bigger than that. So, I became, I wasn't a technician.
Was there ever something that, like, you did in a game and it's something that they hadn't seen, maybe a little bit further in your career that you were just, and then you got yelled at? Or were you, after you learned something, because I know you said you have a photographic memory.
Yeah, I never, early in my career, I played like I practiced. They told me I need to quit practicing so hard. I'm going to hurt our players and hurt myself. I never had any clutches or, and I could say this, when my rookie year and I first got out in a real game, and I was like, oh, this is a little bit different. This dude's moving a little bit faster. And they kept throwing, the tight end kept pushing me on his outcut, and they like kind of 5-6 yarders, like 3 times down the field and they were like, use your feet. Other DBs was like, use your feet. Don't let them push you. And that was the time when I said, okay, I got to start using my brain as far as understanding how I'm approach some of these guys who are a lot bigger than me, and they're just going to push up and they're never going to call it. So that's the only time I could really say anything. I did exactly what I was supposed to do as far as, coaches. Now, did I make some mistakes as far as like, miss a tackle or drop a ball or, I did that all the time.
Steve Lamb, going back to what Jackson said about with his Cam Ward-like answer about knowing that I'm a good producer. Steve Lamb in the YouTube chat, the F&M Bank YouTube chat, Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, Facebook Live, wherever you get your Zone TV, says, no. That was a Will Levis answer. Fumbles and throws picks constantly, and then turns around and says, I know I'm a starting quarterback in this league. So obviously he's saying that you fumble and throw picks constantly as a producer.
Man.
Would you like to respond, Jackson?
I'm good.
There you go. He's quiet confidence.
Bergonzi.
Oh, he wasn't ready, see?
No, it's the full name.
It is. That is true. We did say it was the full name, Mike Bergonzi.
Okay. Well, I was I was trying to Bergonzi him. That's what that was.
So we this whole conversation from them and from us also kind of stems from play calling. And, learning from mistakes and all this kind of stuff. And we were talking off air, and I want to bring that conversation on air about how you kind of called it a grab bag. It's almost like Dirty Santa. Have you ever played Dirty Santa where you get to switch gifts and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah.
I think it's also White Elephant, if I'm not mistaken, or Secret Santa or something like that.
Yeah,
but either way. You get a bad gift, and then you want to switch to bad gift. Well, he was just opening up bad gifts everywhere, left and right, Brian Callen, because if it wasn't Will Levis failing, it was the offensive line failing. If it wasn't that, it was maybe wide receivers not getting open, or maybe it was special teams, or maybe this game was defense.
Or the defense, yeah.
A lot of things just fell around him. But to get to the offense side of the ball, it's pretty hard, right? A lot of people have issues with this play calling, but I feel it's really way down the list, because what are you supposed to be able to do with a terrible offensive line and a quarterback you don't trust? Because I don't think he trusted either really Mason Rudolph or Will Levis by season's end to get the job done in crunch time.
But he wanted to sign him back.
I know. And he kept one of them, I guess, but they didn't even attempt to trade him, supposedly, allegedly.
Yeah. At the end of the day, it's really hard to say without really being in the meeting rooms with them, because they end up, Mason Rudolph, who's a proven backup quarterback in this league, and it can come off the bench and, do really well and solid play. He did that with the Steelers, and they won some games. I mean, he got them into the playoffs one year. So to see him look very much below average in my eyes of what I thought of him really was, it shows you that it was more than just, the quarterback. It showed me that it was also the offensive line. It also has to be some form of play calling, but you're putting your play caller in a tough spot, especially once you show your hand that, you're not really good at protection. So here I would have, probably did, two tight end protection a little bit more to help my tackles out. And sometimes if you're only going to get two guys out in a route, at least hey, these are your reads, then go to your safety valve, and then plays over. Sorry, we live for another day. And, that I think he was offensive minded. Like, I don't think he ever really wanted to embrace that and do that on a game in, game out basis.
Hey, listen. 12 personnel, 21st highest rate in the NFL. That's not good. I mean, to be honest with you, when you have an offensive line like they did some jumbo packages, but then you don't have a receiving threat, even though some may say that a John Ojukwu dagger play could work in the NFL level,
So he was in a tough spot, and that's so you can't just say it's play calling. It was a lot of things all involved in that. So we'll get to see if they improve. They got the offensive line right. They were determined to get that right in the offseason. So we shall see. I'm so hoping that he is. I remember I saw a highlight of somebody that got drafted in there. I saw more for the Steelers give up a sack. So I was like, oh, my God. No, that better not happen. So hopefully they got that at least where it's at least average. And that's where it starts. And so we know they can run the football, and so they'll be at least average at that. So then now you're adding these young receivers with a young quarterback. How quickly will they get up to speed? And that's where some of these veteran receivers there to help them, who are at the end of their careers, but they still got a little bit of juice in there, and they're good, solid, locker room guys. So I think they're banking on that a little bit to help those guys get up to speed sooner than later, because coaches can only do so much, but the players are the ones interacting, talking with them when you're a veteran player and you're trying to help them get along, build up to the speed, and so get up to speed so they can perform, because they have a lot of gifts and talent. So we'll see how quickly that happens. And, I know a lot of people are talking about, they should compete. What I'm talking about, and then, they said there is no competition. No, there is competition within the team to prove that he deserves the right to be the guy. We all know that they're going to give it to him, but not let it be shown that we're not going to let you earn it while you're on the field. So let's say a mini camp, OTAs, he's kind of methodically growing and learning. And then come training camp, maybe week 2 of training camp, now you let him have all the reps at one. That way you kind of make sure you get everybody on the same page. Because if he's not ready and then the players see it, they're going to be like, he wasn't ready. He showed you at practice, and you still gave it to him. Mm-hmm. That's not going to go well in a locker room. So I think they believe he will be, though. And all according, you would assume that he would be with his leadership skills just on that alone. And then being the number 1 pick and all his, throwing, launch angles and everything else. So we shall see. But at the same time, you still want him to prove it and just not give it to him like, okay, do all the reps. And I get it. Some people say, no, just put him there. That's what's going to happen. But there's some part of the locker room where you just want to make sure it's not given. He is, but let's prove it. And you just put him on warp speed to get there sooner than later. And you determine, and you're the head coach. He can go into training camp as the number 1 guy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, again, I go back to what Jaden Daniels did and Bo Nix did last year, because that's the most recent examples.
Caleb Williams, too. They rotated at the beginning until training camp.
That's what I'm saying. It was Jarrett Stidham and Bo Nix. Mm-hmm. It was Jaden Daniels and Marcus. It was Caleb Williams and, who was the backup? I guess Justin. No, it wasn't Justin Fields. It was. It wasn't Tyson Badgett, but it was someone else in between those two guys.
It was a veteran guy.
Oh, man. Who was it? Look that up for us, Jackson. Who was the backup quarterback for the Bears? I cannot I don't know why I can't remember.
But he didn't do him until training camp started.
Right.
Because they had the same, he's number 1 pick.
No, there was another one last year, not just Tyson Badgett. I think it was a 3-guy rotation.
They might have traded him.
They may have. But it was also for Drake May and Jacoby Brissett, right? Jacoby Brissett technically started.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's going to be the case here. But what your overall point is correct, right? nobody in between Jarrett Stidham and Bo Nix. I mean, you know Bo Nix is going to come out on top. Right. Marcus and Jaden Daniels, you know that Jaden Daniels is going to come out top. Case Keenum over at the Bears and Caleb Williams.
That's who it was.
That's who it was. You know who's coming out on top. Right. Again, you know who's coming out on top, but you want him to earn it. And look at Matt Stafford. Something that he talked about was, and this is kind of the same, but kind of not the same, is that when Matt Stafford made a mistake, you know, and he, of course, at that point, it was 2018, 2019, I think, when 2017, 2018, when Callahan was there. So it's like Matt Stafford was pretty far into his NFL career at that point. He said at one point, talking about film, breaking down, someone had asked, you know, how do you handle breaking down mistakes with a guy like Stafford? And he goes, well, at a certain point, a guy has earned his mistakes. And it says something about, like, Matt Stafford, he knows that he made a mistake. You don't really have to, like, hammer it home and yell at him and cuss at him and do this or do that like you may a younger player, because he knows he did something wrong. He's going to sit there and tell you what he did wrong before you even get to coach it to him. But he earned that right. And I think in today's NFL with these younger quarterbacks, I think you need to earn it. When you're giving it to them, look at the recent history, because you can go back to Peyton Manning and all these other guys. That's not how today's NFL works anymore. Mm-hmm. These are different players with different limitations and different abilities. So I look at Anthony Richardson as a prime example. Let's go recent. Bryce Young is another prime example. Those jobs were just given to him. And now listen, earning a job doesn't really mean anything, right? Will Levis, you know, didn't get the job right away, meant nothing.
But it does with perception by his teammates.
Right.
And that's the part. You want to make sure that, hey, you know, he eventually is going to be out there, but let's make sure he goes through the same process as everybody else. At least it looks good on the surface. Whether it's true or not is a whole nother story. But I think you want to make sure that you're right by justifying him being the first pick and putting him out here in harm's way sooner than later, because you can destroy a quarterback that way. So,
and that's why the fans that are worried about the quote-unquote reps and battle at camp, it's not real. Yeah. But you want your quarterback to earn it. And I think it's just so important in today's NFL to earn something now instead of being given it to you right off the cuff. And it's, again, it's being given to him. Don't get us wrong. It's a very fine line, right. But you know what I'm saying?
Well, he's rotating with the ones in the OTAs immediately, or, you know, whenever they have mini camp. So that's already going to be a factor. Yeah. And, you know, so
and by the time training camp rolls
around, you
don't
want him out there doing one reps, and he doesn't even know who's doing what in all protection schemes, everything else. Then you got to stop the play. Granted, that may not ever happen, but you want to make sure you got him ready where he's pulling all cylinders and he's just letting his talent take over.
Yeah, I agree. Let's go to the phones. Joseph wants to talk about Jaden Daniels. Joseph, you're on with Blaine and Zach.
Hey, Blaine and Zach, how y'all doing?
Doing good. How are you?
Good. Real quick, Jaden Daniels done amazing this year. But now they went to the film. Blaine, you know, you're a D-back. They're going to watch him. Mm-hmm. They're going to, this year, they're going to pick him up. And they're going to, because this is the best in the world playing this game. Mm-hmm. And they're going to pick him up, and they will tear him up this year. What do y'all think about that? I mean, I agree. These guys come in when you don't know what they're doing. You know they're going to beat you. But now he's got a year under his belt. What do y'all think's going to happen to him? I'm going to hang up and listen, because I mean I just think D-backs they're smart. You might get them the first time, but they're going to get you the second time. Mm-hmm. And I'll listen to what y'all say.
Yeah, thanks for the call, Joseph. That's why I'm always concerned with the big hype, right? C.J. Stroud still had a good year last year, but they found a new way to attack him, and everybody's like, well, it's the offensive line. It's the offensive line. Well, it's the same offensive line he had the year before, same offensive coordinator he had the year before. The defense is just adjusted, and I think teams think that progress and development is linear, so because you were good your rookie year, you're automatically going to be even better your second year. I don't necessarily think that's the case in all things. That doesn't mean that C.J. Stroud's career is over. No. But I could see Jaden Daniels having a situation where, man, this Commanders team does not look as good or as explosive or as scoring as many points as it did last year. You could look very different, and it will be very interesting to see how Jaden Daniel progresses, but it doesn't indict Jaden Daniels' career right off the bat. Just like he isn't a future Hall of Famer because his rookie year, he isn't a bust because his second year.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And he also is going to have some new weapons, didn't he? Debo Samuels was there.
Yep.
So you got to get all, used to adjustments, but you got to pre-plan.
Laramie Tunsil's there. I mean, they went and built around them like you're supposed to do with a rookie quarterback on a contract that you believe in.
Yeah, and they have to be prepared for the counter moves to what people are going to do to their offense. So that's some of that is based off of, the coordinators as well, and anticipation, you as a player, that these are the things that's going to come up. And you can't continue to, run the same things and think the execution is going to be the same the following next year because everybody's studying. That's the difference between college and pro. Guys are studying. They have all this time to study you. Yep. Well, in college, they're out there recruiting. The coaches aren't, trying to refine. They are doing it on the go. So I think you got to be prepared you got to continue to grow and evolve as players and as coaches. That's what I did. You never, stay settled. Oh, I made the Pro Bowl this year. That means I'm gonna make it again. Well, no, you better work on your weaknesses because they will be found.
Well, and look at let's go to the defending conference champions in their own, the defending conference champions, but the guys that are their division champs, the Eagles, right? Mm-hmm. They don't sit around. Mm-mm. So they actually build strength on strength, right? We're talking about a team that's returning almost all of its starters from last year, except for Milton Williams and a few of the corners. Mm-hmm. And they were the older corners, right? Mm-hmm. Now they went and drafted Ty Robinson, kid from Nebraska, on the offensive line, or the defensive line. Jihad Campbell.
Two corners, right?
They went Jihad Campbell as well, in the middle linebacker out of Alabama, easily the best middle linebacker in the NFL. Andrew Makuba, the safety, picked him back up. They drafted him. Drafted Mac McWilliams as well, who was a fantastic corner, who's going to play nickelback for them. They still drafted Smile Munden Jr., the linebacker out of Georgia. They could almost do a full 11 on defense with Georgia players, by the way. They went and drafted Antoine Powell-Ryland Jr., but they also signed Azeez Ojulari from the New York Giants, Adoree Jackson from the New York Giants, and Josh Uche from Kansas City to play different things. And what does those two New York Giants players have that all these Eagles players have? They played them twice a year, the Commanders twice a year last year. So they're bringing in players while they're already bountiful. It's a bountiful defense. Mm-hmm. To make sure that, hey, Jaden Daniels, your run game, it's gone. We're gonna confuse you, attack you. We have multiple guys that can play multiple different positions. This is a guy that, I like the Commanders' odds to make the playoffs again, but this is a division, and especially the Giants as well, that look to rebound this year, where I think things are going to be harder on Jaden Daniels. And again, doesn't mean anything about his career, but the hype around C.J. Stroud and how it died off towards last year and the hype around Jaden Daniels this year, and I think it's going to die down by the end of the year. And again, we'll see how he responds. This is what tells you whether you have Trevor Lawrence or Joe Burrow and Patrick Mahomes, how you handle maybe everybody else figuring you out.
Now, to be fair, Jaden Daniels was in the MVP conversation, at least in my mind. I don't know across the league. So it's almost like he can't duplicate that going into next season. He can still be a really good player, but to be in the MVP conversation of the whole National Football League, I think that's a stretch. If he can get close to where he was last year, I think that's a successful season, as long as they're winning two and getting in the playoffs.
When we come back, we'll continue talking about the defense and special teams and about the mistakes maybe they're trying to correct or should correct heading into 2025. This is Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons here on 104.5 The Zone.
Struggling with joint pain? Suffering from a recent injury? Looking to recover faster after surgery? Well, at Edge, we've got you covered. From powerful peptide stacks like BPC 157 and TB 500 to PRP treatments, stem cell therapy, and high film muscle stimulation, Edge Peptide is your go to solution for faster healing and recovery. And as an athlete myself, I know how frustrating pain and injuries can be. That's why now is the perfect time to take control of your wellness and finally address those nagging issues. Whether it's golf, tennis, or any activity you love, don't let pain hold you back any longer. And Edge specializes in regenerative treatments designed to reduce inflammation, promote tissue repair, and improve mobility, helping your body heal naturally while avoiding surgery whenever possible. And right now, we're offering a free $250 consultation with your initial treatment. And all you have to do is just go to edgepeptide.com. Yes, that's edgepeptide.com. Or you can give them a call today at 615, of course, 724-1878. That's 724-1878.
Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons here on 104.5 The Zone, powered by All Four Seasons Garage Door. 615-737-1045 is the number. 3HL will be up next, but they're going to be live from a Moment's Peace and Day Spa Salon down in Green Hills area. I think I butchered the name, didn't I, Jackson?
No, you did right.
Did I do it right?
Yeah.
I think I did it right.
For the most part, like 80%.
I got 80% right, just maybe not in the right order.
Oh, it was 100% right words.
Yes.
The order is where you lost the 20%.
Gotcha. With this defense, because we're talking about mistakes, and I think one of the mistakes, obviously there's players, and the players make mistakes on the field, like the run fit and all that kind of stuff. But I feel like when I'm looking at the staff, I felt like their weekly game plan on some of these games was a little perplexing, how they prepared for the quarterback or the offense. I mean, obviously you saw...
So you're talking about the defensive side?
The defensive side of the ball, where, how they chose to attack Malik Willis in week 3, and then what you saw, I guess the Commanders do to the Titans in the run game, and it felt like they just couldn't find a way to stop them. But then you turn around and when you're facing the Jaguars just did what the Commanders did, and you're like kind of in the same boat. I believe it's Jaguars game I'm thinking of. That was after that. It was some game after the Commanders because someone did the same run fit, and you're like, why aren't you able to correct what you did already? I just felt like the game planning week to week was a little inconsistent, and it was a little perplexing with how they chose to attack some of the quarterbacks that they faced. I felt like it didn't make sense to not make Malik Willis beat you with his arms when you had with throwing, when you had the chance to fill the throwing lanes and make him sit there and try to think, instead of trying to blitz him and giving him an easy out to either his outlet in the passing game or being able to scramble. And there's just a couple of instances sprinkled throughout the year that I was like, man, I hope they fix this part.
Well, yeah, that Malik Willis, it was interesting because they had a little insight because they practiced against him. And sometimes that can play against you. And I think at practice, they felt like we gave him so much trouble. Every time we blitzed, he was clueless. He had no idea. So you go into the game saying, okay, we're going to do something the same. But guess what he's thinking? Oh, this is what they're going to do, Coach. This is what they did to me all week of practice. And LaFleur goes, oh, really? Oh, well, we got him. We're going to do the total opposite of that. I'm going to get you into the run game. We're going to start running the ball, get you comfortable. They're going to blitz you. You're going to have one read, and we're going to just throw to that guy. If not, throw it out of bounds. If not, run. See how he made it easy for him? So I think they kind of got caught in there, and then once you kind of let the chicken out there out of the bag. I mean, then now you're tick for tat. I would have gone the opposite approach, saying, okay, let's fill it out and see what offense they're going to run with Malik Willis. Yeah. Let's try to confuse him initially early. Then let's come back around maybe second quarter. Maybe let's get after him a little bit because I think he's expecting that as well. So let's see what the game plan is. It's not about us attacking Malik Willis. It's about the game plan of LaFleur and his offense. That's what you're competing against. So I thought they kind of lost that battle. And then they're running the football. They had injuries there at linebacker in that game with the Commanders. Then, this following week, I think, they kind of did the same thing. So you had some young players out there at linebacker. But I still didn't think the guys up front played very well either. That was the only game I thought they could have played a little bit better. I think it was the Jets. It was the Jets game. Yeah, early on in the run game. But it's hard to question game planning when once you're on game day. Now it's about the players to execute. That's not to say that coaches have some fault in that, but man, once you're out there, man, you got to take ownership of what you're doing out there personally, and then you relay that to the coaches if it's not working. I don't know if they have that trust factor like that or not, but they got some pretty smart. Last year, that's a pretty smart player. So, it was just all around. Not.
I just felt like the floodgates would open, not only just on offense, but on defense and special teams in certain games, and you're just like, wow, this is just an avalanche of
Right.
mistakes.
And
really, it is from players, though.
Right, yeah. And so what happens is then that's what's concerning is the defense good enough with drafting Femi, who probably won't be a starter, to help Cam Ward? And people say, how is he helping Cam Ward? The defense helps Cam Ward. if they are a good defense, a real good defense. I didn't say elite. I said a real good defense. So when you have a young quarterback, to me, you should be able to lean into the defense and the run game. And I don't think the defense is there. And so I think they're going to be, just an okay defense, maybe a little bit better than last year's. I mean, we're still talking about Arden Key is going to have to start. When I keep saying he's a rotational piece on the outside, and he may end up starting. I mean, nothing against him, but that's not his best role. So it's still going to be somewhat of a struggle there on defense. I think they got some good secondary pieces, but I mean, you can only do so much. The game has evolved so much.
You can only do so much running, right? I mean,
Right.
like look at the Drake May play where he's scrambling around for 9 seconds and throws a touchdown, right? I think it's even longer than 9 seconds,
Right.
maybe.
But everybody else is like, oh, he got it. No, I mean, how long do you think
how long
we
can they
cover?
run, like, right? Because then your receivers are freelancing, you're like trying to cover them while watch the quarterback and all this kind of stuff. It's like
And no pressure.
and no pressure. And that's the thing I kind of look at is that the biggest concern of last year is even bigger concern in my mind this year because I don't feel they did enough to generate pressure. Sure, you're hoping that your second round pick can be that dude, but he's a project and he's probably not going to be an impact player every game.
Do you think he's going to start?
No, I don't. And I may be in the minority across.
He has to start.
He has to start, but I don't think he's going to.
Oh, no.
I think it's going to be Draymond Jones and Arden Key, or it may actually be Draymond Jones and Lorenzo Carter because they're going to probably play a base first down, second down kind of situation, and then they're going to rotate in Arden Key. I think Femi's the fourth guy on the depth chart right now.
No, man.
I mean, right now, I have a hard time putting Femi above anybody else.
I get it. It's kind of hard, but second round pick not contributing on a team that was 3 and 4. Oh, my God.
But, like, we're talking, I think he plays 20, 30 snaps a game. I think he plays half the snaps of a defensive game.
I'm assuming they think he's a quick learner and that he's on the fast track. They know something.
If I got that,
Justin Melo. Justin Melo just said everybody had him going in this range. I'm like, huh?
I mean, I hope they're right. But, I mean, again,
oh, my gosh.
I look at drafting guys off of potential and how often do guys who only have potential to cling to. Because he doesn't have production to cling to. He didn't athletically test. Now, he looks fast in certain situations, but he also isn't processing fast in certain situations on tape. So I understand there is some athleticism to his game, but how much is that athleticism above his NFL peers, right?
What did he run?
He ran, I'll have to look it up, because I think he did run the 40, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh.
But he doesn't have an RES score, so he only did one set of drills. But when I look at it like this, Blaine, is that we know that everybody, when you get into this level of competition, everybody's faster than the people you played in college. So you ran a 4.7. And so that's not bad, right? I mean, that's not necessarily bad or anything, and that's not what I'm saying.
What was his first 10 yards? You got that?
I'll get that here in just a second. His 10-yard split was, he did run that 40? Are you sure?
This is what I got from NFL Draft Buzz.
Okay, so that's not in the Beast. So I only had the Beast pulled up. They didn't have his 40 on the Beast. But he did do a broad jump of 120 and a 36.5 vertical. So,
he's exposed.
But I look at it and I go, everybody's fast in the NFL. So is his fast exceptionally fast than someone else? Listen, we'll have to pick this up tomorrow because 3HL's up next. We're running out of time.
Why'd you make me nervous on my way home?
Well, listen.
Oh, my God.
I got a good story about that. I'll tell you off air. When we come back, we won't be coming back. When the station comes back, it'll be 3HL. This has been Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons here on 105 The Zone, powered by All Four Seasons Garage Doors. And in the meantime,
And in between time,
peace.